You want to say anything to anybody?
Hello.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. It is Saturday, July 2025. The date is, oh boy, I am in Coyoacan Park in Mexico City. I like to come here maybe once a month. Before COVID, you could just walk in, you could have a, like you'll see people sitting over here, you could have a picnic. You know, you'd see people come here and it was, you'll still see it, but before it was a little bit more active. But then after COVID, I'll never forget, I was here during COVID. I think it was around March of 2020. And they were kicking everybody out of the park. And one of the policemen came up and said, "Hey, you gotta go, man." And it was like middle of the afternoon. And I think they're open till 6 or 8. And so I had to get to the gate, and there's cops letting everybody out. And I said to the cops, I said, "Hey, what's going on, man?" He goes, "We don't know, but the park's closed." And I said, "Is it open tomorrow?" He goes, "No, it's closed until further notice." And I don't know how long it was closed, but when they reopened the park, they now have police at all the gates, and they check your bags. So whatever they decided they need to impose, who knows, maybe they got a call from the U.S. government said, "You need to impose these." Okay, so they've got Tai Chi now. Yeah, that's nice. But I love these trees here. It reminds me of a painting my father had in his office. And it was a painting of an Indian burial ground, supposedly. And they were, I think it was birch, because they were the white trees with the spots. And it had this it had this Indian who was now a cowboy. And he had a pack mule on the back of him. And he was pulling the pack mule. And he's looking back like he's looking at a ghost chasing him. And it's one of these paintings where, see how there's these things on the trees? So this painting, I don't know what you call it, but this painting uses those dots from the natural dots of the tree to form. And you don't see it when you look at the painting. And then when you, like, you know how you used to look at it with one eye and you stand back, then all of a sudden you see there's these figures in the trees that were chasing the cowboy. And the horse, his horse and the pack mule, they were both spooked as well. And I think my brother has that painting now. But my parents had some really cool paintings. There was a period of time where they thought they were going to get into art. And then I think they realized it wasn't their cup of tea, and they just bought stuff that they enjoyed. And I think that's what you have to do, unless you're a professional and you know what you're doing. I mean, it's like buying a Basquiat, I think is his name, and it looks like something a kindergarten kid would draw. And you're like, yes, it's only $500,000. But it looks like, you know, a 5-year-old drew it. To me, I wouldn't get any enjoyment out of that. I'd be thinking, well, I know what those people think. And, you know, they have so much money that $500,000 on a piece of artwork, and it's been proven to be true, kind of like housing. They're convinced they're going to get $1 million for it, or $2 million, or $5 million, or $10 million in 10 years. And they're right. Because as we see, anybody who spends any money at all, so if you're not dependent on somebody and you actually have to go out and earn the money and then see what the money's buying versus what it used to buy, everybody can see clearly now that our government and the Federal Reserve have destroyed the US dollar. And it's since 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created. It's, as Smedley Butler says, it's one big racket. It's all a racket. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And everything in this country, everything in the United States, probably every other country too, but I can speak about the U.S. Everything in the United States is a racket. Financial, okay, whether it's stockbrokers, bankers, insurance, whether it's real estate, whether it's many types of industries that then have these roadblocks and restrictions for people to get in, all sorts of things. So you have to pay big fees or big dues, or got to know the right people to get into certain industries. It's all a racket, man. And they'll tell you it's for your own good. No, it's not. It's for their good. It's for their own good. It's so that they can pad their pockets. And that's all a racket is, man. A racket is basically when a small group of people control it. And that's what, this is really a beautiful view here. Look at that with the trees. I always love streets where you have the trees lining down. And I've seen pictures of these streets of the jacaranda that are lined like that, and when they're in full bloom, it's just, the jacaranda is the purple flowered tree. And I've gone around to various neighborhoods in Mexico City, and there have been a few areas that are okay, but it's nothing like this that lines up. That would be spectacular. Just walking down, and the place over here is as close as I've found on my walk, and I did a video on it, where the jacaranda, the purple flowers are just raining down on you. It's incredible. I remember the first time, and those are in the southwest U.S. I think California, Arizona, Nevada have those, maybe New Mexico. And those are originally from Brazil. And then they were brought up here. And, yeah, this time when I went back to the United States, I have to say, basically I came back, boy, this is a long story, so I'll just gotta cut it short. Long story short, the only one of my family or my friends who have ever come down to Mexico to visit me in all the years I've been here is my older sister, and she came down the first day of April, I think. April Fool's surprise. I was like, you sure you're coming? It's not a joke. So, they blocked off the street. All right, well, I'll cut through the woods. They have some police tape. So the nice thing about this park is you can go anywhere you want. So I'll just go through here. Probably a tree fell. And what they do is you can see the trees fall, and then they eventually get to cutting them up. So, what was I telling this story for? Boy, I'll tell you, that's terrible. The type of path I like to walk on too. All they do is chip up the trees, create this mulch, and then put it down as a walking path. It's very comfortable on the legs and the knees and the ankles. They have sand paths as well. This red sand, which is coming up, and I don't like those because I'm just not a fan of stone or sand walkways. They're filthy. If I'm gonna have a walkway, I'd prefer it to be like a paver of some sort. See the sand? Yeah, and they've been having a lot of trees falling over. They've had some really severe storms here this year. Right before I left, a hurricane from Oaxaca, wasn't a hurricane when it arrived here, but you can see all the trees that were falling over. Because what happens is it rains and rains and rains, and a lot of these trees, maybe their roots aren't deep enough, and down they come with the winds. Get some very strong winds. So I know the university, they've got a farming and agricultural program, and I know they use some space here. And it's hit or miss. Like right now, it seems like it's summertime's not the season for growing whatever they grow. But they've got some Pretty interesting flowers over here. Now that plant there that looks like trumpets, I can never remember the name of that plant, but it's a psychedelic plant. You take those flowers and you make a tea, and it's like LSD. Some pretty flowers in there. But that's the work with the gardening, is keeping it, everything pruned around it, keeping the weeds away, keeping it, that was a proper spacing is required, and just due diligence. I remember when I had my flowers, I'd go out every night and take 10 or 15 minutes as I'm drinking a beer or just listening to some music and just pop down and just pull out the weeds that were trying to come up. Now I don't know if they have a community garden here as well. There are parks that do have community gardens here. I've seen them, whereas there'll be like a little neighborhood, and so yeah, they grow some very nice vegetables. Yeah, God help you if you try to steal it, probably. Okay, so I remembered. Okay, so when my sister came down, she's like, hey, I'm going to have a party in July. There's a nice scene of those buildings right there. So she asked me to come back in July for a barbecue at her house. And I think it was my younger sister who said, hey, we'll have a birthday party for her because her birthday's in July, so we'll have a surprise. So, I hate traveling now, I really do, especially flying. At least with a bus or a train, it's slower, but you don't have the hassles of going through these checkpoints and check bags and fighting over whether you have space in the... I really hate how they force everybody to do carry-ons, and now nobody has space in the carry-on. You get up to the door and they say you got to check your bag. I mean, if I had enough money, I would start an airline, and my airline, what I would do is I would, depending on how big the plane was, I would either put 2 or 3 lazy boy chairs that could rotate slightly and had a leg thing on it, and I'd make it like for 2 people, like not a separated room, but I'd make it a nice space. I'd eliminate seats, because the bottom line is airlines make most of their money, from what I've read, on carrying U.S. mail and freight. They also make money on their first class passengers, but you've seen how many airlines just have, 12 seats? So how much are they really making, right? Especially domestic. So let's say they're paying $500 more a seat for times 12 seats, $6,000. It's nothing. It's nothing. And so what I would do is I would basically I'd basically put in lazy boy chairs. I'd put in I haven't really thought this through, because first thing I'd do is I'd lay out the space of a plane and see where I could put everything, and at one point I'd run the numbers. And what I'd do is, let's say you can get a coast-to-coast flight for $500 one way, right? Or $300. What I'd do is I'd just double the cost. I'd double the cost of an econo box seat. And I can tell you right now, me personally, if I could get on a plane where it was a comfortable experience, maybe have live music on the plane and a bar, piano bar maybe, something that makes it entertaining for the 3, 4, 5 hours. And maybe even have one of those double-decker planes, if they even still make those, where you have 2 layers and you could have, a cattle car down below, and up above you can have the party room. And I would try to turn flying into an enjoyable experience. And I don't think airlines give two flying foots about that anymore. So, but that's my rant on that. And I can expand upon that because I used to do this for fun. Like, how would I create this business? And then everything goes down to the spreadsheet. Everything goes on. In your business plan, you could have the greatest ideas in the world, but if the numbers don't work out, then you can't stay in business. And for anybody who's thinking about starting a business, you have to know how you are as a person. Me personally, I don't mind working hard. I like hard work. I find hard work on something challenging, enjoyable, but I don't want to work for free. And so I could never be in a business that was, for me, I would not want a high volume, low margin business. It's because, and some of those make a lot of money, but the problem is the risk of those businesses. If something goes off, you're screwed. Like if all of a sudden your costs go up, now you got to try to pass those costs on because you have such low margins. Instead, I try to find, anytime I look at a business, and this is my 2 cents for what it's worth for all the years of experience I have, is you find a niche or a niche, whatever you want to say it, where you can carve out a nice living somewhere. And for some industries, you're always going to find certain clientele who want high quality products, who want high quality service, who want, go down the list, all the things that are important, fast turnaround. And there was a very interesting thing, I'm going to have to see if I can dig that out. It was a great poster, and it had all the things for a business, and it said, any business can do like 2 of these, but you can't do all 3. Meaning there's always trade-offs. There's always trade-offs. You can't be everything to everybody. And that's okay. The goal is run your numbers, and if you're making money, that's all that counts. And you realize you have to know your target market. So, okay. So, getting back to the party. So she was down here, and it's a great visit. This sister of mine, her and I are probably, I would say we're probably think the most alike out of my siblings. And so we tend to have conversations, and we can go back and forth and having interesting conversations on many things. And that's why some people say you pick your friends, not your family, because let's face it, your friends are people you can talk to, right? Your friends are people who you choose, whereas family, you don't always choose them. And I'm not saying that about my family. I'm just saying that, some of my siblings, I love all my siblings, and my parents raised me to believe that that's my community, right? Those are the people where you get into a jam. Those are the people you can rely on, even if you're not having, coffee and donuts together every day. I remember I dated this one girl, and her family got together every Sunday. The entire family would get together at primarily her mother's house, but sometimes they'd move it around. And it was a chore because, it was an Italian family, and it was like 20 or 30 people, and good luck finding the space for that many people. But I always was kind of envious of that. I always thought that was kind of cool, where you have, the various generations getting together. See, here we go, look at this. That is so beautiful, so beautiful. This is right in the middle of a city of 25 million people, man. This is what I love about Hong Kong, too. You go out a couple miles outside of Hong Kong over to the new territories, and you'd never know you were near. You'd think you were the only man on the planet. Oh boy, I forgot what I was saying again. Okay, well, we'll go back to my sister. So she asked me, hey, can you come up? All right. She's like, no pressure, because I didn't go back for Christmas last year because, number one, it's winter time, and I've paid my penance. I've done my time with all those winters. I prefer to see Santa Claus flying over a palm tree wherever I am. So, and it's a long way because, typically, when you have family get-togethers or you just visit family or friends, I mean, you're not with them a week, right? You're with them. Typically, when my family gets together for the holidays, we go over one of the houses and people arrive 10 o'clock in the morning, stay till 9 o'clock at night, so you get half a day, basically. So you're traveling from Mexico up to New England, which is almost always a connection of some type. So you're traveling a full day to there and a full day back to spend a half a day with your family. And I'm not saying that's not important, but to do that on a consistent basis, it's a pain in the balls. So I said to her, I said, Peg, I said, I think that's, as of now, I don't, it's not that I don't want to go. I just, I didn't even know what the cost of it was, but it was going to be minimum $1,000 round trip, and then 2 days of travel. Plus I'm thinking, okay, so I go there for the half a day, and then maybe I stay over somebody's house, and I'm there. I mean, how many days can you stay before, people have to live their lives? I've stayed at friends' houses for longer than that, but I'm always cognizant of the fact that this isn't my home, and this is their generosity and their friendship that they're asking me to be here. But so I told them no, and then something happened to me, and about a month later, I woke up. It was a Sunday morning, and I just felt or heard, wasn't necessarily here, but you just felt this message saying, you gotta go. You gotta go. That's all it said. You gotta go. Something to that effect. And I opened up my computer, and this was first thing on Sunday morning. I just made my coffee, and I booked the flight. Found different options. Booked a flight, and Dan had been saying to me, "Oh, you never visited me last year," or whatever the hell he was saying. So what I did was I found Air Mexico. Just anybody who's interested in going to Mexico, Air Mexico just opened up a new trade route, or a new flight route from Mexico City to Tampa, and it's direct. Hopefully it's direct. If it's not direct, you're in trouble. Be in that big gulf of America, Mexico, whatever you want to call it, right in between. And no connections, which is the way to go to Mexico, man. When they start doing these connections, such a pain in the balls. So first class flight was one way, $366. Cheap. And it was only 2.5 hours. So I went and I stayed with Dan, and so usually when I plan a trip, I have I usually have some sort of itinerary on what I want to do, and then I adjust that as I go. My itinerary is never really booked in stone, unless the only time it is if I get such a deal on an airline flight that I'll book it. And then I'll plan my trip, and I'll plan to be wherever that flight is. Because I prefer, if I can, to fly into here and fly out there, and you just meander your way if you have enough time. Black clouds, it's rainy season, so I like it when it gives you the daytime to go out and enjoy, and cute little baby. Yeah, the kids in most countries are so adorable, especially when they put little pigtails on them or ponytails and dress them up, the boys or the girls, in both China, Mexico, even the U.S. You know, the kids truly are amazing, a lot of these kids. But so I flew. So I spent a week with Dan, and I had no plan other than I booked that flight. I messaged my sister saying, "Hey, I'm coming." It's all I can tell you. I'm coming. She's like, "Well, what's your itinerary? What's your ETA itinerary? Blah blah." I said, "I have no idea. Don't have a plan." I said, "This time," I told her, I said, "the only thing I got was a message saying you gotta go." So I booked the flight. Flight's booked. Now I'm gonna go to Dan's, and I'll just play it by ear. So when I got to Dan's, I had no idea how I was gonna get up to New England, where the party was. But it's approximately 1,500 miles. Knew I wasn't gonna walk it. I looked at the train. I looked at taking buses up to different cities along the way, but originally I was only going to stay a couple days with Dan, and that was going to give me a week to get up to New England. And I pictured, stopping at some of my favorite cities along the way for a day and get out and explore, because I haven't been to these places in years at this point, so just to get a chance to just see them. And I didn't want to just, okay, this is Savannah. Oh, hello, Savannah. How you doing? On we go. That isn't what I wanted to have happen, but that is what happened. So the train, Amtrak. I'm just going to say it plainly. Amtrak is an embarrassment to the United States, and it's a lot of the routes don't have Wi-Fi in the 21st century. Deep into the 21st century now. The conductors who are on the train, 8 out of 10 of them are terrible, rude, combative, don't know their jobs, and there was an incident on the train that I took last year where I'm sitting in this car. They give you an assigned seat. This woman sits down with her toddler, and she unpacks this bag and puts out all these toys, and she pulls out this video, like what are those medium-sized things? What are those things called? iPads or whatever they're called? I forget. Tablets. Pulled out a tablet, and now she's got Barney on full blast. I love you, or whatever it was. And I said to her, and this is over the noise of a train. It's like this is right next to me, like she's right there. And I was like, I can tell by this woman, she's a big barge. I knew she was going to be combative. So I called the conductor and I said, "Hey, what's the policy on noise in this train?" Any normal freaking travel company has a policy where if you're going to watch a show, talk on the phone, do whatever, you got to wear earphones, earbuds, whatever you want to call them, because you're not disturbing everybody else. And this woman, and I never went and looked it up because I didn't want to get kicked off in the middle of Texas. And plus there's no Wi-Fi to look it up. She told me that Amtrak has no policy on noise. And I told her, I said, I don't believe you. I said, a company like Amtrak, a big company, doesn't have a policy on noise. I said, so that anybody could come in and have a marching band here? See, this is why it's so important, because the last thing you want to do is leave it up to your employees to start setting policy. Whereas that conductor's going to be like, that's obtrusive. Or this conductor's like, oh no, it's only a marching band, it's okay. This is why the TSA was so disastrous for the first couple of years, because you'd go to one airport, they'd say, take your shoes off. Another airport would say, no, your shoes can stay on. And it was enraging. Because now, I was in Hawaii one time. I had this guy in Hawaii, who was working for the TSA. He basically took my passport and or my license, I forget. And he told me he was going to, because I gave him, I'm one of these people where if I don't see something that's right, I'm going to say something. And I'm not rude about it. I'm just bringing it up, saying this is not right. This is not right. You're not doing your job, man. And unfortunately, in our country today, we have a country of pussies who won't stand up against anything. No. Look at this little guy. He ran straight for me. For a minute there, I thought he was going to be that. If anybody saw that video online of that rabid squirrel who attacked the guy on his porch and then attacked his dog, I'm sure it was not a fun experience for that guy, having that rat riding you. But it was hilarious, especially when it got on the dog and rode the dog in a circle. So anyways, so the conductor's like, what do you want me to do? Like really aggressively. And I said, I was here first. I said, so you put this woman with a child next to me who's listening to Barney at maximum volume level. Not what I really want to listen to. And I'm asking you, because I don't want to get into a fight with some woman over her child. And she said to me, she goes, so the black woman there, she overheard her, and she looks at me, she goes, wait. And now she started, this woman, I never said a word to this woman, and this woman's trying to come at me and hit me. And I said to her, lady, you better sit back in your seat. And people are unhinged, man. So now the conductor's like, you see what you caused? I said, see what I caused? I said, you're the one who's not doing your job, lady, which went over really well. And so I was just going to let it go. So the conductor goes, well, why don't you move to another car? I said, so I'm the one who has to be inconvenienced here, right? And that really, So I just said, you know what? I'll move. That puts an end to it. Fine. If you're allowing me to move, I'll move. I moved up to a dead quiet car. No problems. But of course that woman had to track me down, right? Don't know who was looking after her kid when she tracked me down a car away. Yeah, people are stupid, man. What if I was a psycho? Well, what if I was a psycho who might hurt somebody? Wouldn't be pleasant for her then. So I'm not really impressed by Amtrak, and especially having been in China for so many years. I mean, that's the gold standard, in my opinion. And Japan, people will be like, what about Europe and Japan? Well, the difference is the Chinese trains are like a tenth of the cost of Japan and Europe. When you get to Japan, the trains in Japan are very expensive, like a couple $100 to go from, I think it was a couple, like $180, $200 to go from Tokyo down to Osaka, if I remember correctly, or Kyoto maybe. And I ended up taking a bus, an overnight bus, which is real pleasant experience because I thought it would be a normal bus size, but it was made for like a 5-foot-tall Japanese person. And so I didn't even, look at this path, wow, beautiful. It's very nice. So I was at Dan's, wasn't sure how long I was going to be there. Like I said, I planned a couple days, and then I started looking at, okay, maybe I fly, but the flight's on short notice. I mean, the flight was going to be $400. And fine, if that's what the cost is, that's what it is. You know, what are you going to do? The train, I looked at the train just for shits and giggles. And the train out of Tampa didn't even go every day. I think it was every 3 days. So the train that I wanted, it was on the wrong day. So, and the train, for just the coach, I think the train was, for one day it was over 500, and another day I think it was 340. Which 340, going from Tampa all the way to Boston, I think it was. That's not a bad price, but it took 3 days. I think it was two and a half or 3 days. So the room, you can get a roomette or a room, and I think the price was like $700 or $1,000 for the 2 days. Maybe more. Might have been, one of them was $1,500, which is, it's so absurd. But I mean, if there's 2 people, it's definitely worth getting a room. And I was on a train for 40 something hours, and I was able to get through it, but it's not something I would do unless I had to do it again. So train wasn't going to work. I looked at the Greyhound option, just puddle jumping up, and then when I spent that wasn't going to work because I wasn't going to have enough time. And what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to have stuck to a certain timetable where I can't get to certain places at certain times. And so it came down to a car, because the car, what a car does in the United States, or I suppose anywhere else, is you have flexibility. And it worked out, because what I'd do is I'd work during the day, and then I would drive in the afternoon and at night. A lot of the days. That's where I'd make most of my miles. So, and I slept in the car. So it was my hotel. And I got a car. And the reason I did the car, I got this brand new Kia, one of those K4s or whatever. It was a pretty good car. It had a lot of space. There were some things I didn't like about the car, but overall, it was very good. And I'd never driven one of these cars where everything's buttons now, and the car decides what it's going to do. It's no longer manual. It does these things automatically. And this car, you turn off the car and it would unlock all the doors. And I'm like, what a terrible feature. And I tried reprogramming it, and because it's a rental, I couldn't reprogram the car. But for the 7 days, I got it from a Sunday to a Sunday. And I picked it up not too far from Dan's house at like a yokel, literally this parking lot. The woman, she was like I felt bad for her because she's like 85 years old and she has to work at a rental car place on a Sunday morning in Okmulgee, Florida. Probably not her idea of retirement. So I try to exercise kindness and compassion. I really do. It's a struggle for me, but I do try. And I do ask God for his assistance in that, because it is not one of my strong points. I acknowledge that. But it's better than it used to be. It really is. I can tell you some stories. I said, yeah, I have a reservation. She goes, oh, okay. What's your name? I gave her my name, and she's like, oh, that car's not here yet. And I said, wow, that, a text message or an email would have been nice. She didn't get it. So, again, I mean, these are systems that these companies, I'm sure they have them in place. So I said, okay, do you know when it's due back in? No, I have no idea. Hopefully it's going to be soon. So I stepped to one side, and the guy behind me came in, and he goes, oh, I'm just returning. And then another guy came in and said, yeah, I made a reservation. She goes, when did you make the reservation? He said, I made it this morning. She goes, well, I'm sorry, any reservations made yesterday or today, there's no cars. So they had an exchange, and he turned around and left. And I'm thinking, okay, well, looks like I'm going to be flying, because I'm not going to be getting a car. And so I went out to tell Dan, because Dan drove me there. And just as I was out talking to Dan, I see this black Kia pull into the parking lot. And I was like, well, that must be the car. And this Asian guy, and I don't know what the woman, she was, the woman said she was from this part of Florida. Very pretty girl. And the Asian guy, he was a good looking guy too. And they said they're both from LA. Well, they live in LA now. And I was talking to them because, so I walked in, and so I started saying, hey, do you have any issues with the car? I started asking, the woman looks at me, she goes, those are the questions I have to ask. I said, okay, go ahead. I said, I just was curious, because I just wanted to know, I'm going to be driving this car 1,500, 2,000 miles. I want to know if he's had any issues. The only thing that they said to me, these kids, they're like probably 25, I'm guessing. And the only thing that they could say about the car was, you got to check out the cup holders. They're so cool. I was like, a cup holder? The whole car, a cup holder? I said, how are the tires? How are, any problems with this? He goes, oh yeah, no, didn't notice it. He goes, yeah, we drove it in a heavy rain yesterday, no problems. They didn't do anything to the car. Literally, the guy who cleaned up the cars, he was this older guy. He looked like Charlie Daniels with a longer beard, but thin, a thin Charlie Daniels, and I'm not even sure he put fluids in the car. And I vacuumed it because there was something wrong with the car, and I had to bring it up, and he just wrote a notation on there what I found wrong with the car. And I got in the car and headed out. But the car only cost me, with taxes and fees, $350 for a week. No drop-off charge. That's why I did it. Because normally when you pick up a car in one place, drop it off in another, they hit you with a bong charge, a drop-off fee. And sometimes the drop-off fees can be $1,000 to $3,000. But I think what they figured in this company, Thrifty or Budget, I think it was Budget, but they put them all in the same shed. That's all they had, a shed. And I think what they figured is summertime in Boston's better than summertime in Florida. We can rent this car out for a higher rate. And sure enough, because when I was looking to rent this car, I was thinking, okay, I'll stay for 2 weeks. I'll rent the car for 2 weeks. And so the car was $350 for the first week, and I looked at doing 2 weeks instead. Same pickup, same drop off. But now it went from $350 to, I think, almost $800, between $750 and $800. They were charging me $400 for the second week. And it was $400. It was like, that's before taxes. It was an extra $400 before taxes. And I said, what is the reason I came to the United States? I said, basically, last year when I came, I wanted to, well, I'm not going to get into last year, but this year see that building? I remember when they're finishing that. I said, basically, the objective is to go see my family. I haven't seen my family all together in, I don't even remember when we were all together. Probably my father's funeral. Yeah, my father's funeral. Great. Weddings and funerals, right? So that was the goal. That's what I was spending the time and the money to do, to achieve that objective. And I hadn't seen Dan in 6 years. 6 years. Hadn't seen him in person, face to face. We'd done lots of videos, but I haven't seen him face to face. So that was really objective number 2. And once I decided to drive, I sent out feelers to people who were on the way. And if I could work it in, I'd work it in. If I couldn't, I couldn't. Because the thing is what I didn't want to do is I get very fatigued when I'm here and I go to travel all day, stay a day, stay half a day, travel all day. And I ended up doing that anyways, driving, because I left on a Sunday and I got there I got to Boston on a Wednesday night, Wednesday afternoon. So from Sunday morning, so I traveled all day Sunday, all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and most of Wednesday. So 3.5 days I covered 2,000 miles. And I did a lot of it at night, which made me a little nervous because, there's a rental car. And I drive, and when I drive, I don't drive highways, I drive all back roads. That's the way I like to experience it. And at nighttime, maybe it doesn't make a difference, but probably doesn't, but it's still how I do it. So that's how I decided on driving. And I'm glad I did, because I don't know how many minutes I've been talking, going like this. But basically the point I want to make is I encourage everybody to get in their cars and drive around the United States and go outside your comfort zones and go to the cities you never go to. And you'll see what what a majority of people in the U.S. live like, and it's not good. I drove through, so I came up the west coast of Florida, drove up through, then I entered Georgia, drove through Georgia, and then up through South Carolina and North Carolina before hitting Virginia. And then from Virginia I went into Pennsylvania, then New York, then Connecticut and Rhode Island. I passed through towns, and it was in the middle of the night, so this camera's terrible at night, but just abandoned towns. I mean, so many towns, even up into New York and Pennsylvania. A lot of these towns, their downtowns are all out of business, for rent, for sale, and there'll be like 2 stores in the whole freaking downtown that are operating. Usually like a Dollar General, a hair place, a gas station, maybe a market of some type. And all these, the old strip motels, the one-level motels. I passed so many of those that were just abandoned and just overgrown. Looked like something from a zombie show. And just poor cities that have no money for infrastructure, and it's just falling apart. So I was very cognizant that a lot of these towns probably made their money on speed traps, and sure enough, it's amazing how many, I think it was Georgia that, yeah, I've got it all on video. I'll eventually get to reviewing it and posting videos if there's anything interesting. But it's amazing, a lot of them are making their money doing exactly that. I'd hit cop after cop after cop, and I don't know if they had planes above, but I made sure that, the speed limit was, and the amazing thing is on these back roads, the speed limits on some of the roads were 65 miles an hour. I think some of them are even 70. Going through like parts of Georgia, they were like highways, these back roads. So without the traffic. So it just reinforced to me that everything that I saw and talked about 10 plus years ago, it's happening, man. You can never predict the timing of these events, and because runners, not a lot of people here today. I'm surprised on a Saturday. Yeah, you can never predict the timing of these things, and but really, when Biden put those sanctions on Russia, that's when I think everybody and their brother felt the aftermath of that one. That's when the whole world started saying "niet, niet" to the dollar, "niet," and that's when all these countries openly were doing backdoor deals for Russian oil, and you could clearly see now people, even some of the U.S. quote-unquote allies, saying they wanted to join the BRICS. I think the only 2 countries who will absolutely refuse to join the BRICS at the end of the day will be the US and the UK. I think everybody else, the stupidest country of them all, Germany. Germany by far is the biggest bunch of buffoons in the whole lot, because Russia's right on their doorstep. They basically destroyed their entire freaking economy because they basically allowed the US to blow up their pipeline. Or when I say allowed, I don't think they knew about it, but they know about it now, and they didn't make a stink. They were told to get in line, bend over, get in line, and they said, "Jawohl!" Yep. Yeah, see, look at that picture. That's beautiful, isn't it? Nice family walking. Yeah, I'm going to take a picture of that. What a great day for them. But this is what happened to me last year as well. So I'm in the US, and now I'm like looking for, like, this is why everything in your life has an objective. Doesn't mean you can't change the objective or modify it or adapt it, but if you have a plan, that's fine. And really, when I came to the US, I had no plan. The only plan I had was go to that party and see Dan. Everything else was a fill-in. Everything else was secondary. And so when I started... So everything else was secondary. So I enjoyed the trip. It was a wonderful experience. Met some really nice people along the way. Really nice people. Yeah, there was so many nice people along the way. And that's the thing about the United States. And I'll say this while I'm thinking about it. I'm not saying there aren't nice people in other countries, but when it comes to the U.S., and this is probably changing with the changing culture of the United States, because with all these people coming in, it's a different culture. But when I was a child, there was a sense of community. And doesn't mean everybody was your best friend, but for the most part, you had greetings, hello, how are you? And when you were in line, you weren't looking to cut line, you weren't looking to cheat somebody, everything, just basic decency. And what's the word I'm looking for? Basic decency and consideration, right? You weren't just looking out for yourself at the expense of anybody else. If you could, and that's what you normally get. I go to China and Mexico, and again, nothing's 100%. But in general, like I was on that subway, those people come in the bull rush. If you're standing there, you're getting run over. You're getting run over. The only reason I didn't get run over is because I'm twice as big as them. And I was able to basically ride them into the back corner. But if that had been like an old guy or an old woman there, yeah, I'm sure people get hurt severely in those incidents. Because what happens is you've got like 20, 30 people bull rushing. They can't stop because they've got people bulling them. So there's an old woman and they're running them over. And just in general, that's just one example in Mexico and in China. China, I call it WTF moments. You can figure out what WTF means. Where you're walking down the street or you're someplace and you see the Chinese do something and you're like, what the F? It's just, and I always have the same, I'm always like, hey man, this isn't my country. They can do whatever the heck they want. So I'm getting to the end. So what I do is I do like a grid pattern up and down. Isn't that beautiful? Wow, look at that. But there's too many examples to mention. It's just a different culture. And that is the thing that even now, all these years that I've been traveling, it's still something that I just still shake my head at sometimes, because it doesn't have to make sense. It's just the way that whatever culture you're in operates. And if you don't like it, you know, they'll tell you to leave. Sometimes angrily. Because, you know, a lot of these cultures, they know it's messed up, like they know it's screwed up. And just like the U.S. is today, the U.S. is like every other country now, where they just bend over and they're like, play the bitch. People just, yeah, they just accept it. It's, I don't even want to get into this. But, and so, and I think that's why everybody looks out for themselves in these cultures, because it starts at the top, man. If you've got corrupt people leading, you know, it's going to trickle. That's the true trickle down, corruption, and everything's a racket. Even now, I'm not even going to get into Trump, but Trump has really been disappointing. I didn't have any high hopes for him, because I pretty much thought he was, I didn't believe him. And also I do think that one person coming in, it's going to be impossible for one person to really overcome. But these countries that you go to, you know, instead of saying, yeah, you know, you're right, this is a problem, we need to fix it. No, that isn't what they'll do. They'll want to bash your head in. How dare you insult my country? How dare you, you stupid gringo? If you don't love it, even same thing as they say in the U.S. If you don't love it, leave it, man. Those same morons. You don't love it, leave it. And I think it's the stupidest attitude. That's the attitude of a loser, in my opinion. If you don't love it, leave it. No, the attitude should be, yeah, it's messed up. Let's change it. Let's make it better. Yep. Most people are like, hey man, we're the best in the world. This is the best there is. No. Disagree. So, I think everybody knows that these disagreements and this animosity, but whether it's real or whether it's fabricated for the show, I think everybody knows that nothing's going to change. And the ones who are really going to end up paying the price are the people who are in their 20s and younger. They're going to be in the firestorm, man. Me and people 40 and older, 50 and older probably, definitely, 60 and older definitely, 50s on the fringe, 40s you might have to like ride a little bit through this heavy storm that's coming, and then under 40, yeah, not going to be so pleasant for you guys. And there's a lot of people who have no clue about what I'm talking about, and they're going to find out the hard way. And yeah, there's a lot of people in the U.S. who don't have a pot to piss in, man. And if you think they're just gonna accept what's coming and not fight back for it, yeah, you got another thing coming. So on a sunny day, or even a rainy day, you've got some protection. Well, that's really all that I was thinking about as I went off on these tangents. And I told Dan about 3 years ago, and I don't know if it was on a public video or a private video. I just don't remember. I'd have to look. And I think it was Dan. Might have been Elishay, or it might have been don't remember who it was, but I basically said, you know what? At this point, if you haven't formed a plan B yet, and this is 2022 or 2023, if you don't have plan B in place yet, don't bother. Go live your life, and maybe nothing will happen. Maybe it will be delayed long enough to where, you die before it becomes really that big of a deal. If you're old enough, or you don't live long enough. Because, since COVID, since those jabs, the lifespan of the United States has dropped. And the quality of life, you look at any of these charts. So, and the thing I'd like to get an update on is the pilots. Because there was, the FAA secretly passed a change 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, where they changed the heart requirement or the medical requirement for pilots, because after the jab, all these pilots started failing these heart tests. And so they ended up changing the requirements because if all of a sudden they started failing all these pilots, then Calle Negudos. Yeah, they would have had no pilots. So that's it. Live long and prosper.